are we going to do? Dad would probably say, now is the time. We must preserve, protect, and expand democracy. We must ensure that voting rights is protected for all people. We must ensure that our women and children are treated fairly. We must end gun violence.
We are not here for commemoration. We are here for rededication to the fight for a future where at long last America's practice will be as good as promised. And let me say to the women, we weren't able to speak in 1963, but we are here in 2023.
They will not be able to turn back the clock. They want to stop blacks from voting. We're going to vote anyhow. No matter how hard you make it, we coming anyhow. They're going to try to put women back in the kitchen with an apron. We're not going back in the kitchen. We're not putting the apron back on. They're trying to tell gays, get back in the closet. We're not going back in the closet. We're going to lock the closet. We're going to stand up for who we are and where we are and what we are. Our fathers fought for this, and we're going to maintain it. 60 years ago, Martin Luther King talked about a dream. 60 years later, we're the dreamers. The dreamers are in Washington, D.C. The schemers are being booked in Atlanta, Georgia, in the Fulton County Jail.
Good morning and welcome to the National Newspaper Publicists Association's Let It Be Known. This morning, the March on Washington. Yesterday commemorated the 60th anniversary. There was a commemoration of the 60th anniversary at the White House. We'll bring you details on that. Also, Donald Trump, following his latest indictment, his fourth in surrender, raised $7.1 million from mugshots from his selling T-shirts and paraphernalia of his mugshot. But more importantly, his trial date has been set, and he's not happy about it. And really, neither are the prosecutors. But the judge said this is when it's going to start, and that's that. We'll tell you what that date is. He also faces arraignment, his latest arraignment, September the 6th. That'll take place in Fulton County. Also, a Florida elementary school is facing backlash after pulling all Black 4th and 5th grade students from classes and into a special auditorium about their grades. Well, we're going to talk about that. But we're also going to talk about the big story, the shooting, the racially motivated shooting in Jackson. We have a special guest at the top of the hour. Don't miss, from Florida. We'll be coming to you from the Sunshine State with some key players down there at the top of the hour. But right now, we bring Austin Cooper on to talk about the headlines. Austin, how are you this morning?
Stacy, good to see you, brother. Good morning.
Good to see you as well. And, as we, before we even get to our guest this morning, we have a few moments before we get to them. But there was another shooting, Austin, at the University of North Carolina. Another gun incident, another gun on campus type incident, gun control, Austin. We hear it. We kind of heard it a little bit in Sharpton's speech there. Nothing's being done, though.
No, and what was especially shocking. So I went down to the mall, to the march on Saturday afternoon. Just wanted to be a part of history, and at the original date, August 28th, 1963, I wasn't even 1 year old. And for whatever reason, I've not gone to any of the previous commemoration marches, as Reverend Sharpton called a continuation march, but I wanted to be part of the 60th anniversary. And while the numbers, several thousand, were nowhere near the 250,000. As I stood and looked around and talked to people, I felt a presence to the original date. I looked out on the, I guess you call it the reflection pool. I looked up at the Lincoln Memorial, Lincoln Monument, and closed my eyes, and I could hear Dr. King, saying, "I have a dream and free at last. Thank God Almighty, free at last." So to leave that mall and to drive back to Oxon Hill is when I cut on XM radio and heard the news of the shooting, and it was just regardless of the day the shooting in Florida, it was still jarring. This here, a faculty member was killed at the University of North Carolina. All shocking, all clearly there is not enough. Not enough is being done in terms of gun safety, gun legislation. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. And I don't wish harm upon anybody, but only when our legislators, particularly at the federal level, only when, I'll be more specific, only when Republicans in the House and the Senate start losing family members, start losing loved ones, start losing friends, start losing their own lives to gun violence, only then will they begin to take it seriously.
Yeah, and that sounds, is unfortunate but true. That's what it sounds like.
And I've
We
also, if I can continue, Stacy, we were talking about Emmett Till a couple of weeks ago on the anniversary of his brutal slaying, and I also believe, and I've said before, that only when some of these parents, in the height of their grief, the height of their pain, the height of their anguish, decide to release photos of their disfigured children, their disfigured loved ones, only then perhaps will it change the ball and shock the Congress. When we start seeing some of those photos, only then will that perhaps move the needle, as did Mamie Till when she released photos of her son, and that basically launched the civil rights movement. We
Mhm.
need a shocking moments like
Yeah,
that.
but the question becomes, Austin, so folks in 1950s, as we found out because of the picture, they had a modicum of a conscience.
Mhm.
Do they have it today?
I I believe they have it today. I just think that we have, as a society, become so comfortable with these shootings that you read about them and it kind of I hate to say rub off many or too many of our backs. I do believe that there is a conscience there, and that can be pricked and opened, and a sense of duty, a sense of compassion can be released. But it's going to take a shocking moment like that. I believe.
Mhm.
I thought honestly that the shooting, 10, 11 years ago of the rich white kids up at Sandy Hook
Mhm.
shocked the nation. That didn't do anything. I thought that the shooting of Gabby Gifford, former member of Congress from Arizona, might move the needle. So I'm hoping against hope, which is why I said only when Republicans, Gabby's a Democrat, and Democrats, for the majority, for the most part, are in favor of sensible gun control on the Republican side, where we're having these challenges. And only when they start becoming victims or losing loved ones, that may move the needle.
Yeah, I think
And
when it
it's unfortunate that that's what it may,
come down to.
what it may take.
Yeah, I just, we see so much. We've become, as a society in general, so desensitized because of the violent video games we see, the imagery that, Twitter or X or whatever is unhinged now. Social media in itself is pretty much unhinged. So I just think that that has played such a huge role in desensitizing people, and so here we sit, and Republicans have been, like you said, almost in their, I guess, in their lives or in their minds, they've been immune to this type of thing. So perhaps if it does hit home, when they went into Nancy Pelosi's house and nearly killed her husband. That didn't move the needle at all because, again, to your point, Nancy is a hated Democrat.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
you had former President Trump and others, kind of uh, going along with the crowd saying, death to Nancy and stuff like that. So, um, it just gets worse. And I think the mindset, I don't know how many watching the program, maybe Power 96, saw what happened in Colorado, Denver, Colorado yesterday on the baseball field. Two fans ran out. The Atlanta Braves were playing. They approached left fielder superstar Ronald Acuna, and one of the fans grabbed him, tried to take a selfie with him. He was not resisting. And then security finally came out, and another fan came out, and a third fan came out. It was, but the point is how scary that must have been given
For him.
this. Yes, for him. And his teammates seemed to not really react in a way that I was anticipating both teams to come out there to his rescue, um, but with the mindset of people, you don't know if those two fans, because one of them was grabbing him really tight, and the second one, he actually pushed him to the ground. Acuna went to the ground.
And
You just had
suppose,
to wonder.
yeah, suppose God forbid one
He
of
had a
them
gun.
had a gun, or because I don't believe you. I might not gone to a baseball game in a while, but I'm not aware of any. I don't believe that you go through metal detectors, do you? Go to a
So
baseball
most stadiums do now. They do. Most stadiums, if not all, do have metal detectors. But this last week in Chicago at the White Sox game, someone was shot in the stands at the White Sox
That's
game.
what I thought. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's always possible, even with the detectors, to get through. Thank God he's okay. But again, it is a mindset, especially of this younger generation, that I can do anything. I can jump over the line, and there will be no repercussions for what I do. I mean, I can't even imagine doing something like that. What makes anybody with a half an ounce of sense think that is okay to do this? I'm older than you, Stacey, but when I was growing up, you know, we didn't have video games.
Right.
We didn't, and again, it is this socialization of society now with with these games and with the internet, and police games that not police games, these video games that glorify shooting cops, that
Hmm.
glorify shooting people, and it is part of our psyche. Another thing we have to look at is mental illness. You know,
Absolutely.
how this person yesterday in Raleigh, and I went to school at St. Aug, just a couple of miles from UNC, and how crazy do you have to be to leave home and to drive to a school with the intent of killing students?
Well,
And we're seeing
listen.
that with greater, with greater frequency, and all of a
Yes.
sudden, the father or the mother is looking at, after all this goes on, decides to go and look at their son's email account or look at, on his computer and see this craziness. You didn't
Hmm.
know your son was crazy. You don't know your daughter is crazy.
But talking about how far do you have to go? Well, the Buffalo shooter last year, Top Supermarket, right? He drove hundreds of miles.
That's right.
He
That's
he
right.
picked out the zip code knowing that it was, a predominantly black area, and drove hundreds of miles to commit that crime.
Mhm.
So, mental illness, yes, but hate is
Hate.
driving
Mhm.
so much, and that hate is coming from no other place than the politicians, the elected officials in this country. And that's where, if you're going to make a change, that's where the change has to come
Absolutely.
because
You
it's
know,
coming, it's trickling down big time.
Yeah, the election of Barack Obama in 2008, his subsequent reelection in 2012, removed the scabs of real racism in America. As much as America moved forward with
Hmm.
the election of the first black man at that time out of 43 presidents, in many ways it was a setback for America because it just exposed an underlying uh, sense of racism
Yeah.
that was always just below the surface. And Donald Trump has taken a sledgehammer and cracked the pavement open.
Well, his trial date was in the election interference case in Washington is set for March the 4th, a schedule that is really interesting because it happens a day before Super Tuesday. Judge Tanya Chutkin said, "This is it." The prosecutors
But
wanted January. Trump and his attorneys argued for 2026.
absolutely. And and Judge Chutkin, to her credit, and any other judge, even most Republican appointed judge, would have looked at the petition, whatever the legal language is, the request by the Trump team, and said, "You're out of your mind. This is nuts." I mean, it was an insult to any court. It was an insult
Mhm.
to any judge appointed by a Republican or Democrat, including Trump, to uh, to request a trial date of almost 3 years away, two and a
Yeah.
half years away. And Judge Chutkin gave them the opportunity, as I understand, not once, but twice during the discussion, during the hearing, during whatever the process is called, yesterday, to offer another date. And that
Hmm.
just goes to show how they were listening, no doubt, to their crazy client and being disrespectful to the court by standing up and looking her in the eye and saying, "We want this date." So she said, "Okay, since you can't give me a date, I will give a date." And she extended by 2 months.
Yeah, yeah. It's so interesting how he Trump and his team is still operating above the law, or trying to operate above the law. Um, and his arraignment for the Atlanta case with Vonnie Willis, the racketeering case, is set now for September the 6th. And just a note on that, Austin, there were 19 defendants, including Trump. Only one of them remain in jail. Need we say who that one is?
Mm-hmm. That's
Harrison Floyd,
exactly. The
the
idiot,
old,
the head of
the black man.
black, blacks for Trump. And I have no sympathy whatsoever
Mm.
for him. Let him
He
sit.
doesn't even have a lawyer.
No, no, no. Let him sit there until they figure out what they're going to do with him. Let him sit there until trial date. He was in the courtroom via video on Thursday or Friday, complaining that he does not have $40,000 to retain a lawyer.
And
Well,
yet Trump
good. You,
comes there with a
you should have
40
thought about
car
that
motorcade.
before, huh?
Yet Trump comes to surrender in a 40-car motorcade.
Thank you. Exactly. And do you think that Trump asked about him? How many times? I wish we could be. We know the answer. How many times has Trump asked any of his aides what is happening with those 18 others? He could care less about them before asking them to do what they did, and he could care less about them even more so now. Why
Mhm.
not all this money? Greer just put up $7.1 million.
Yep.
Why not say that some of this money is going to go to the defense of some of these people who are in trouble listening to me? Because he never cared about them. He doesn't care about them. None of the money would go to them. He
Not
talked
a
about
penny.
100,000 a plate fundraiser for Rudy Giuliani to help with his legal expenses, and Rudy's probably drunk enough to believe that he's going to get some of that money. All of that money is going to Trump.
without question. And here another situation going on down in Georgia where state legislators can or at least will attempt to remove Fonnie Willis in October based on a new law down there, which gives the governor and others, well, the legislature, power to remove a district attorney. Same way Ron DeSantis in Florida has removed 2 district attorneys. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there, Austin.
Well, it's I'm I'm not optimistic that that Fonnie Willis will not be removed. I'm very extremely concerned. But and I hate to sound like a broken record, but it goes back to to voting. This is again a reminder of the importance of all of us voting, not only every 4 years, but every 2 years, and at our local elections, because the governor, with Governor Kemp, will more than likely side side with those who want to remove her. So to me, and let's keep in mind, this is the same Georgia governor who stole the election from Stacey Abrams. A couple of years ago, had more cover at the Secretary of State to do that and to get away with it. He did the right thing with regard to the November election, but these Republicans are quite comfortable doing the right thing on the same issue on this side of the street and the wrong thing on the same issue on another side of the street. So we have to be ever vigilant for that. And again, it just boils down to voting, to ensuring that our interests are represented. If we had Stacey Abrams as governor, then this would not be happening.
Yeah, it wouldn't be an issue.
And if I can add, you made a good point. Just referencing, I found that 40-car motorcade. I find these 40-car motorcades
They're offensive.
for a felon to be, soon to be convicted felon on at least one of the 4 counts, to be so offensive. And I'm not saying that Donald Trump does not deserve Secret Service protection. He does. He is a former president. But all of the pomp and circumstance that we see with his every movement, I just find offensive.
Yeah, George Conway spoke about that as well as Michael Cohen, Trump's former lawyer, saying the same thing, that it's pretty offensive. And then you see these other defendants. Rudy's complaining he doesn't have money. You got the Floyd still in jail. Everyone's come and gone. They'll be back on the 6th. And he'll be reunited, at least temporarily, with his cohorts on the 6th, as they all are going to be arraigned. But he remains in jail. But also, let's move on though. Florida school district. This is really talking about, Florida. We're gonna have some special guests shortly from Florida, but Florida school district has apologized for singling out Black students about low test scores in an assembly. Flagler County officials said that staff at Bunnell Elementary school took Black 4th and 5th graders away from their regular activities last Friday to attend a PowerPoint presentation on low standardized test scores. The presentation, reportedly led by 2 Black teachers, highlighted that Black students generally underperform on standardized exams for the past 3 years and called them, quote, a problem group. However, the assembly did not take into account which of the Black students actually passed their test and merely rounded up all of the 9 and 10-year-olds based on their race. And during that assembly, there was talk about, this is what happens if you don't do well in school, and don't go to college. You can end up in jail, shot, or killed. And this was only for the Black students, including those who do well.
Hmm hmm Again, this is the crazy society in which we live, and my all I can say is my home state of birth, my state of birth, my state of birth. What is happening down there is just offensive, crazy. I mean, under what circumstances would anybody who's not a racist themselves think, or crazy themselves think that it's okay to single out students, like this. How is that supposed to motivate these students to do well in school?
This was
How is telling them or having them participate in such an exercise supposed to inspire them? I mean, a student at that age could be, emotionally jarred for life. Your
yeah,
teachers, who you're supposed to look up to, who are supposed to teach you, educate you, inspire you every day to continue up the educational ladder, who are supposed to be there to help you. And we know that because of so many homes, our teachers today have an even greater burden. Sometimes you're the teacher, sometimes you're the mother, sometimes you're the father, sometimes you're the grandmother. So our teachers today are also, in too many instances, social workers and de
mhm.
facto family members. And to think that any of them would think this is okay is makes no sense to me.
Yeah, Power 96 is Florida is the new Mississippi, and my wife says they should have asked the parents' permission first, but this is so demeaning. She says
Absolutely,
it is
absolutely.
very demeaning. Nasinga Burton says the nation that will put black kids in prison, uh, Latinx kids in cages will absolutely do this to our children.
Oh, absolutely.
But our question, and then of course they put a black face on it, right? Two black teachers to lead the assembly. Um,
Yeah, and they were
it's
simple enough to do it. The
and
teachers
right,
were simple enough to
exactly.
do it.
So it's just it makes it even more demeaning in some ways, you know. Um, the inmates are running the asylum, the singer says, and Mike V says modern day lean on me with Joe Clark. It's just unfathomable that folks feel like they can treat other people's children in this manner.
I mean, can you imagine how you and I, Stacey, would feel, or any of our viewers who have children, Greer, would feel if this had been done to our children?
Yeah. Yeah.
The pain, the shock.
Yeah.
How do you comfort your child? How do you, calm your child? How do you explain to your child that this is a part of society in which we live, and you have to rise above it? And sometimes you're going to come under attack by those who should be supporting you.
Right. Right. And oh boy, it's frustrating, even discussing this, but it has to be discussed. I have children, um, and I know how I would react. The singer says all skin
Yeah,
folk ain't kinfolk, and Bobby Henry from the West Side Gazette in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. When are we going to realize that all of us are just who we are to them? No separation, good, bad, or indifferent, smart, smarter, smartest. It does not matter. We are black in their eyes, and that's it. And what makes it so bad is that those who look like us are just as indignant in representing who we are. They don't see greatness, they see blackness.
exactly, exactly,
Uh,
exactly.
well, authorities have identified the three victims shot and killed today, over the weekend, I should say, in Jacksonville, Florida, in an attack that is being investigated as a hate crime, an attack that is and certainly was a hate crime. The victims were identified as Angela Carr, who's 52 years old, Analt Lagier Jr., 19, and Gerald Deshaun Gallion, who was 29. Jacksonville Sheriff T.K. Waters on Sunday identified the shooter as 21-year-old Ryan Palmetter, a white man who authorities said took his own life. Waters said that the gunman fired 11 rounds into a car, killing Carr. He then entered Dollar General and shot and killed Lagier before exiting and returning to kill Gallion. The gunman was wearing a tactical vest and mask and was armed with a Glock and an AR-15 style rifle that had swastikas on it. Joining us this morning is former Florida State Rep and State Senator Tony Hill and Dr. Kimberly Allen, the Chief Executive Officer of 904 Ward. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good to
Thank
see
you so much for joining the Black Press this morning. Uh, Mr. Hill, I know you've been down there in the trenches, and I know Dr. Allen has been in the trenches. What is the feeling right now in Jacksonville, in all of Florida, but particularly in Jacksonville right now? We know the governor was down there. We saw the side eyes, the well-deserved side eyes. But tell us, give us the pulse of Jacksonville right now, and perhaps Florida.
Well, I'm going to yield to Dr. Allen, and then I'll try to fill in the holes after that. But she has her finger on the pulse with the group that she has established here in Jacksonville, trying to heal the wounds way back into the 1800s when we had lynchings in Florida. So, Dr. Allen, why don't you kick us off?
Sure, Senator Hill, thank you. And thank you, Stacey, for the invitation. Right now, there's grief, there's anger, there is frustration, there is hope still, there's resilience. It's all sort of mixed together because for many of us, we know that what we've experienced is not new. We also know that as jarring as it is, it's not surprising. And so I think there is the mixture of all of those things, but the community in Jacksonville is always resilient. There was a rally yesterday where folks were expressing their frustrations, expressing their anger, but also still expressing their hopefulness. And so I think what we are experiencing in this moment is a grieving community that is rightly upset, but that is also ready and willing to put in the work so that we cannot have this be part of our identity any longer.
Yeah, and Mr. Hill, in the wake of this event, I mean, so many we can point to, but are there any steps that you see that are being taken to address and prevent such hate crimes, particularly in Florida?
Well, interesting, Stacey, that first of all, thank you for allowing us to come on today, and heard those pointing statements from Brother Alston. But Dr. Allen and some others are pulling together a Jewish and African-American fellowship because hate is hate and is happening too frequently here in Florida. I am a past board chair of the African American History Task Force, where some of this stuff has started, Stacey, and now it's germinating up. And hopefully, through the work that Dr. Allen is doing and other folks in the community, that we can begin to complement and have some fellowship around all this hatred. As you know, the young man had SWAT stickers all over the gun. Yeah. And so those are some of the issues that we're sometimes, Stacey, too disconnected from each other. So I've reached out to, she spoke at the mall. In fact, I was in Washington, Brother Austin, reflecting just like you, because I want you to know, Stacey and Brother Austin, that A. Philip Randolph was from Jacksonville.
That's right.
A. Philip Randolph is from Jacksonville. And so, of course, we sang that song, Lift Every Voice and Sing. James Weldon Johnson and the brother was from Jacksonville. In fact, we are building an iconic park here in Jacksonville in memory of the song called Lift Every Voice and Sing. And so we are working now around the clock to try to make sure that we address this hatred, that we address this racism that is going on. We just elected a first female mayor. We also have a tax collector that is African-American, the first in the history of Jacksonville to have two females to be in the executive branch of government here in Jacksonville. We have about 30% population of African-Americans here in Jacksonville. We have a population of about 970,000. So what we're asking for, and we're going to begin the dialogue within that Jewish community, is that we reinstate the assault ban. We reinstate the assault ban, Stacey. There's no reason on planet Earth, or green Earth, that someone should have a gun of war. So we're going to be asking our legislators to sign on to this bill, HR 1808. and we need to push that to reinstate that assault ban.
Yeah. Go ahead, Austin. I think.
Yeah, good to see you, Brother Tony and Sister Kim. Brother Tony, I got to ask you, who is that future leader that I see on your side?
Oh, believe it or not, Dr. Allen, this is my great grandson.
Okay.
Oh.
Stacey, I just want to let you know, when I was growing up, I forgot about Friday night, but we'll talk about that off the record. But this is a great grandson. As my pastor say, you'll get that in the parking lot. But
so as a child, you know, I lived in the late '60s for 3 years. I lived in at that time of St. Philip's Episcopal Church on Union, and I forgot what the cross street is. So I have fond memories of Jacksonville. I've gone back on many occasions. Now I saw the reception that Governor DeSantis received a few days ago, I guess when he went to a memorial vigil. Have you all been in contact with his office since? And if so, what have those conversations been like? Or was that just a one-time publicity stunt?
Well, to be honest with you, Austin, this is the first time the governor, even though he was a congressman in a next door county, to come into Jacksonville.
Really?
Right. I worked for Congressman Al Lawson for about 5 years.
Sure.
So before he became governor, he was a congressman. Before that, he was in the military. And so I think he was a JAG officer. So this is the first time we have ever seen the governor come into our community. Of course, he went down and met with the leadership at Edward Waters University, which we want to really give a shout out to that security guard.
Oh, absolutely.
There were some young people.
Thank God.
Believe it or not, there were some young people, if you see in the background of the video, that was filming the guy. And then they say, oh, okay, here comes security. So, but by that time, he had got back in his car and started moving off. I don't think he had the mask on yet. It didn't appear, Dr. Adam, that he had that mask on yet. But he did have that bulletproof vest type thing on. Right. And so he left there and went about 5 blocks, Stacey.
I was about to ask you how
on the right-hand side, the same side that the school was on. And the lady was just sitting out there in her car. I don't know. She was, you know how we do sometimes when we go to the store, we just want to try to figure out what we want to get before we go in. And he just sprayed the parking lot.
Yeah. Wow.
And then he went inside, and a gentleman walked in with his girlfriend, and apparently he shot the guy. And then when he turned around, the girl had ran out, and thank God for that. But then he turned on the young man, 19 years old, Brother Austin, just trying to do the right thing, working, and he get blown away.
Dr. Allen, you know, Mike V, one of our viewers, writes this, and I want to direct this to you. Perhaps you have some thoughts on this because I think it makes a lot of sense. Mike writes that the policies that Governor DeSantis put in place prevent you from talking about race. So how are you going to describe this incident in a historic context? How do you talk about this incident when the governor really has darn near made it illegal to talk about stuff like this?
So what the governor has done, it has restricted what he calls the Stop Woke Act. He in K-12 schools where anything that makes someone feel uncomfortable around gender, sexual identity, or race, that can't, that's intolerable. He's also gone to college campuses and stripped away all of the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging work that happens on college campuses in Florida. And in addition to that, they've also done the work of stripping down, watering down African-American history in the K-12 system here in Florida. But what I say is, as the governor and as this administration is trying to control the aspects of the education system that are within their control, as community, we still have a responsibility to talk about race, to talk about racism, to talk about our history. I never want to leave our history to any institution that has been already built and predicated on racial ideas in the first place. The
Mhm.
community has a responsibility. Organizations like the NAACP and the Urban League, and the AME churches, right? We hold our history. And so the governor and any legal governing body can't legislate that we can't talk about our history in its truth. What we do in our educational settings, there is some control there. But I also think we, as I heard mentioned earlier, Mr. Austin said, what we really need to do is make sure that folks understand the power of their vote, because um, whether or not we want to admit everything is political, everything doesn't have to be partisan. However, we got to vote because folks are thinking, oh, I voted for the governor and that's just it. But the governor appoints the education commissioner, right? And so those policies, just like they appoint judges in the state. And so connecting those dots for folks to say, we don't have to take this. We don't have to just say this is just how our schools are going to operate. We have agency, and we don't have to elect anybody else in those positions who are no longer going to serve our interest.
Yeah, and Mr. Hill, Bobby Henry, the publisher of the West Side Gazette, first of all, he sends his kudos to both of you. But he asked this question. He says, how is it that a governor who has allowed gun carrying without a permit and has not voiced his action against banning assault rifles come to a community where his actions has led to a racist behavior that kills and discounts the history of a people, and we accept it? Oh, you on mute, Senator?
I'm on mute.
There you go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, we got to get back to education. We got to get back to information as it relates to our power with the vote. A lot of people were starstruck that he came. We had some people get up and say, well, the guy is bringing some tricklets. Well, sometimes we cannot accept stuff from people who will, on the next vein, talk and tell people and brag about how he has stopped us from teaching African-American history. In fact, Stacey, we were the first state. I served in the legislature for 17 years. We were the first state in the country to mandate that you teach African-American history, K through 12. So it wasn't until this woke and all these other acronyms that they use in terms of what we call the American Exchange, Legislative Exchange Group. That's who comes out with these different policies, and they pick it up and then they run it and drop it in different states. The governor had never addressed African-American history in the state of Florida.
Yeah.
And so I want to say to you and to the audience that live in Florida, October the 14th is a pivotal day in our state. October the 14th, there is going to be a play in Titusville, Florida, in honor of Harry and Harry T. Moore. Brother, also, I want you to Google that name, Harry T. Moore. They were the first martyrs to die in the civil rights struggle.
Bombing on, Senator, a bombing on, wasn't it Christmas Day?
Right, yeah, Christmas Day, Stacey. Christmas Day, Harry T. Moore, they were celebrating their 25th wedding anniversary. Came home from dinner, went in, was getting ready to retire. His mother and the daughter were in the back room of the house, and the Klan put a bomb up under their bed.
That's right.
Where their bed was stationed at, I mean, in terms of the house, and blew them up. And Honey and the Rock there out of Washington, D.C., the group Honey and the Rock was saying that made a song after them. There it is right there. Yeah. Racial violence in Florida. So this is nothing new for us. What happened on Saturday is nothing new for Florida. We can go from Mims, Florida, over to Ocoee. Almost 100 years ago, July Perry wanted to just go and vote, and they wiped out the whole town. It wasn't until maybe 2000, maybe late 90s or early 2000 that Black people started migrating back to Ocoee. Now, let me give you the icing on the cake here today. Now there is a African American Republican who is now championing a black museum in the state of Florida. Let me say that again to you. So, I mean, I don't know if they're not on medication or what's going on up there in Washington. I mean, in Tallahassee, but now he is championing that, and he voted for the curriculum about slavery benefited somebody. That's how crazy we are going on in Florida. But again, Brother Austin, as you say, at the end of the day, we cannot be silent. It's not an option in 24.
And you know, the sad thing is this whole CRT campaign, as you and Dr. Kim have referenced, Senator, is only going to exacerbate race relations in Florida and across the country. You know, it's going to give white folk a comfort in the nonsensical belief that they are an aggrieved society.
Right.
That blacks have always been and remain the reasons why they have not moved forward for whatever reason in life.
Well, Denise Rolock Barnes, the publisher of the Washington Informer, mentions that Asala is coming to Florida this month.
Yes, sir.
So for folks don't know, it's the Association
next month, Austin. Next month now.
Next month.
we are waiting for them to come because we're going to talk some history here in Jacksonville.
Well, there you go.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Allen, how do you offer any type of solace, comfort to the community there, particularly as we know? I mean, the governor comes down. That certainly that only raises the ire a little bit more. It doesn't offer comfort because of who he is and what he stands for. But you're on the ground, community activists. How do you offer some sort of comfort?
First of all, I think we find comfort in each other as a community. I think one of the things that I said in another interview is Black people are not a depressed people. We are not a deprived people. We find ways to celebrate. We find ways to hold on to joy. We find ways to gather and support each other, and that is what we will continue to do. One of the things that I think is really powerful in this moment, we saw it quite a bit when George Floyd died. Also, was murdered actually in 2020. Also, is that the folks who, whether they were awakening to racial violence and racial terror for the first time or not, they came and they saw the grief and they felt the grief and they wanted to be a part of the solution, which is part of how we started to get all the legislation to undo a lot of the work that was happening because folks wanted to know better. And so what started to happen, and I believe will continue to happen, is that the community will continue to rely on each other. But I think also we will continue to activate. We recognize, right, that there are words, there are the thoughts and prayers, but there's action that needs to be taken, be it voting, be it holding our elected officials, current elected officials accountable, whatever it is, we're also going to do that. But in the short term, my organization, 90 Forward, our vision is an end to racism so that all people thrive. And how we do that is we try to create spaces for people to, one, have dialogue, for us to talk with each other, for us to learn about each other. Because the truth of the matter is, I think part of the reason we see the extremism in the way that we see it is because we get in our bubbles. We don't step outside of our comfort zones. We don't try to get to know someone who's different from us. So we try to provide spaces for people to get to know each other better. I think the more real life figures you have to show you that this person wants the same thing I want. We all want life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. At the end of the day, we got a lot more things in common than that tears us apart. That starts to wear away at some of the things that we start to see that we might encounter via social media or via television or whatever it is that extremists use to radicalize, right? Because you have real life examples. But we also want to help folks build relationships, because what I know of this is we had Heather McGee come to Jacksonville a few months ago, and she said, you know, if we want to build community, we got to build trust. But if we want to build trust, we gotta tell the truth. And so as part of that, we have to start telling the truth of how we got here so that folks can have authentic relationships. So when I'm linking arms with my Jewish brother and sister, with my LGBTQ friend, with my Hispanic brother or sister, what I am doing, I understand fully why I'm in this relationship with them and why we are fighting for this justice and why we are fighting against this same hate. And then we do that so that we can take action. Again, there is never anything in a vacuum that says we are only focused on hearts and minds. Hearts and minds are great, but policy is the way that we're going to get to the large swaths of change that we need to see in our community. Policy is what got us here. The economics of policy is what got us here. And we have to work just as hard and intentionally to undo those negative policies and address the systemic issues that we are seeing in our community.
Yes, a lot going on there. Senator Hill, the families, have you had an opportunity, or you, Dr. Allen, have any of you had an opportunity to sit and talk with the family of the victims? And if so, can you kind of give us an idea of how they're coping? I'm sure it's the toughest of tough times.
Well, Brother Stacy, I haven't personally met any of the family members, but I'm going to be reaching out to two pastors where they're possibly the funerals will be on Saturday. Of course, we are asking you and Brother Austin for prayers there as we go. On behalf of the family, but also this storm that is coming through. So we ask for the prayers on that. We had Ben Crump here yesterday representing the young man, I think the 39-year-old.
Yes.
And his family. So soon the funeral will be at St. Stephen's AME Church, which is it's off of 95 when you're coming through Jacksonville, whether you're going north or south. And then the other one at the funeral, I think the young man, the 19-year-old, will be at St. Paul Baptist Church on Winton Drive. So right across from one of our historic schools here in Duval, Ribaud High School, which I happen to graduate from. But but I have not heard anything around the female and that relationship. So hopefully trying to jog the storm and activities that today will begin to paint a picture of who they were and their contribution to our community. Again, I can't emphasize enough, Brother Austin, if you could come down and be with us on October the 14th as we do a historic perspective of the Moors. I mean, they gave everything they had, Harry and Harry T. Moore, to make sure that we live the life that we live here now in Florida. I know when I served in the legislature, every chance I got, I was sitting in the dome there, I would look up and just say, thank you, Mr. Moore, for registering and what you did, and you gave your sacrifice. In fact, Stacey, 4 years ago, the county there, Brevard County, where that happened, the school board admitted that they were wrong, and they restored the Moors to Teachers for Life. And believe it or not, Brother Austin, they have now a curriculum from K through 12. We have a museum there. We even have a replica of the house that was blown up. We built a replica of that. And of course, Brother Gray, Gary, that you see right there, has been the champion of it. Brother Austin and Brother Stacy, we're praying that we can get to President Biden, because they deserve a medal of honor, just like the young man in Mississippi. The young man that was killed, the Moors were done in 1951. Mm-hmm. And we need to recognize the Moors, and hopefully we can reach some levels up there. They have one surviving son, and actually he lives in Maryland, a grandson.
Really?
That lives in Maryland. His mother was the last to die, Evangeline Moore. And she came home that day, that Christmas Day, on the train, and she asked, "Where's my mom? Where's my dad?" And they wanted to wait till she got home to tell them that they were killed. So October the 14th, we're going to be in Titusville at the Titusville Playhouse. All those Floridians that are listening, please join us to play homage to Harriet and Harriet T. Moore.
I'm going to definitely come down, Senator, and Dr. Kimmon will be in touch. And, as I listened to you, we talked about, Mamie Till, we're talking about the Moors. These are the kinds of, these are the stories that Governor DeSantis does not want Black or white kids to learn about. And that's why you and Dr. Kim's work is so important in instilling, despite all of the obstacles that you are facing down there. Thank you for what you were doing to keep the legacy of the Moors alive. Thank you for what you were doing on behalf of the families of the 3 innocent victims killed. Thank you.
And Stacey, I wanted to say to you, when you asked the governor, all we can say on behalf of Dr. Allen and myself, and we in Florida, elections have consequences.
That's right.
When we don't show up.
That's right.
I mean, Andrew Gillen, 33,000 votes.
Would have made it. Yep.
33,000 votes. We would not be going through this madness that we're going through almost 6-7 years later if we would have just got up and realized the power that we have. Everybody know, Stacey, everybody know we have power but us. Until we can come to that conclusion and realization that
Senator,
we can move forward.
You mentioned the Moors, and on October 14th, one of our viewers is asking, is that going to be live streamed?
No. That's going to be at a playhouse, the Titusville Playhouse.
Okay.
They won't give me a call at 904-705-5182. 904-705-5182, and we can get tickets. I think tickets are $30 to $33, but that is a play that anyone who lives in Florida. Okay. Because guess what happened, Stacey? When the Moors were living, they took the state of Florida to court because they were educators to sue the state of Florida that Black teachers make the same thing white teachers make.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, Dr. Allen, before we close, just wanted to close with you and final thoughts on what's next for the community down there in Jacksonville and for the Black community as a whole.
I think we will do what we have done for our history, and that is continue to push and press. I think we absolutely, if we have not made the connection yet, we have got to mobilize this vote. I can't understate how important it is to show up at your local, your state, and the federal elections, because Senator said it, they have consequences, whether you do or whether you don't. There are consequences. And so we will continue to mobilize. We will continue to engage in conversations. We have a local administration, mayoral administration, who seems really open to listening and learning and collaborating. And so we will continue to speak with her and her administration in this process to figure out how we can continue to put resources in communities that have been under-resourced, how we can continue to move the efforts along that we know will further the progress in Black communities here in Jacksonville. We will continue to hold folks accountable, whether we like it or not. Part of what we need to demand from our governmental leadership is some sort of solidarity. We cannot continue to watch our leadership be so split and divided along party lines because it doesn't benefit the people. And I said this in a meeting that I was in recently with our local administration folks that if you can't put aside your political party for what is going to be for the betterment of the people as a whole, because you might represent a district, you might represent a particular sector, but when you're voting on a bill to pass or not, it affects everybody, not just the folks that are in your district. And so we need to make sure that we're holding people accountable for their vote overall. And when they don't do the things that they say they're going to do, we have a responsibility, we have a right as citizens to vote them out. And so I think we will continue to do that. I know as a community, we will continue to grieve this moment because it is a completely different ball game when it is in your house. We've seen it across the country and it just kicked in our front door. And that I think has been the most shocking part for folks to sort of come to the realization of. But what I saw on Saturday at the press conference was a Republican sheriff, a Democratic mayor, state representative, state senator, city council come together and say it's not about party. It's about these people who were racially terrorized because that's what happened.
Right.
And so having leaders that can come together despite their political philosophical differences to call something what it is going to make the difference in how our communities are going forward. We can't keep asking the community to come together, and the folks who are supposed to be representing us are not. That's oil and vinegar. So we got to figure out a way to demand that from our leadership as well as we are trying to mobilize on the ground.
Well, Dr. Kimberly Allen, the Chief Executive Officer of 9 Forward, and Senator Tony Hill, we appreciate both of you dropping in on the Black Presses. Let it be known this morning. Of course, Austin Cooper of the Washington Informer. We always appreciate Austin's participation and contributions. And folks, we'll stay on top of these huge, sad, huge news stories as the days move forward. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Thank you.